over the course of the weekend.
It's a $1 million question. Started to unfold last week with Mr. Taylor's resignation. Mr. Taylor made us aware last week that Dr. Taylor did make us aware that he would resign his position as principal at North Atlanta High School on last week. I know there was plenty of chatter with regard to him remaining as principal at North Atlanta High School. He was fairly resolute with regard to his decision to resign. We did have some conversation about him remaining as principal at North Atlanta High School, but he indicated that his resignation would fairly well stand. He talked about his inability as a principal to get personnel, for instance. He wanted to be sure, he let us know that he was having trouble getting appropriate personnel approved. He mentioned specifically that, in his words, and again, I'll be careful not to articulate for Dr. Taylor, but I want to provide you a picture of what we understood. And that is his description to us with regard to how he was having difficulty getting things done at his school. We continue to work with him to try and identify specifically what those were. He outlined some of those, and at that point, keep in mind he had resigned. He had been talking to his immediate supervisor and his next supervisor regarding those ideas and the ideas he had to rectify some of what he, I think, described as roadblocks that he continued to come up against. And during the time that I engaged in conversation with him, quite frankly, he had those conversations with his immediate supervisors, and we continued to try and work through how he could then stay in a position to help us perhaps eliminate some of those roadblocks. Everything regarding, as I indicated earlier, from personnel hiring, decisions at the building level. There's been tremendous discussion about autonomy at the building level.
What now is happening? Because from what I understand on my way here, the board did not approve of this new position. So now what?
Okay. What unfolded is the superintendent has to make a recommendation for hire. He made the recommendation that Gene Taylor serve in the position of executive director. The gentleman, Dr. Burks, who was in that position, was reassigned. That then made that position vacant. The superintendent made a recommendation to the board that Dr. Taylor serve in that capacity as executive director. That would be a promotion for Dr. Taylor. A promotion has to be through gains and losses from the Board of Education. The Board of Education has to approve the superintendent's recommendation. The superintendent made that recommendation. It was brought forward today at 4 p.m. There was a motion made at 4 p.m. or shortly after 4 p.m. and that motion did not receive a second. As a result, the recommendation failed.
So does that mean he's not going to be in that position? He's not going to be the executive director of the North Cluster?
That is correct.
Okay, so where are we then? Where is Dr. Taylor going?
Dr. Taylor has tendered a resignation. That resignation has to be received by the superintendent. At this point, the executive director position is vacant. We will start an immediate search to fill that position.
Is Dr. Taylor going to be one of the candidates proposed, or has he been eliminated?
Dr. Taylor would have the ability, if he so chooses, to apply for that position, yes.
But they did not. So why would he apply?
Okay, well,
That's the answer. He does have the
They just
ability.
denied it. But they just denied it. So
news to us. We thought that we were coming here with the circumstance where Dr. Taylor was now in the position of the executive director of the North Cluster. So, I mean, for how many people is that news that he's not? Yeah.
The executive director position nor the principal mentor position, neither of those are new positions. Yeah, I've been talking to this side of the room, haven't I? Sorry.
To clarify what you said earlier, Dr. Taylor communicated to you guys, his bosses, with the administration, which you are a part of, that he was having difficulty having his request fulfilled to improve and administer and be the principal of North Atlanta High School and make it as best as he could. That's what he communicated to you, the administration. Is that correct?
Correct.
He also indicated, according to your words, that he was having trouble with personnel matters and autonomy at the building. How long had these problems, in Dr. Taylor's mind, been communicated by Dr. Taylor to you, the administration?
And as I indicated earlier, that's not a new phenomenon. It's not. And we want to continue to try and help really alleviate those barriers that keep principals from doing the jobs they need to do day in and day out to provide top quality instruction in the classroom.
Please share with us what some of the issues that bothered Dr. Taylor.
What I have already outlined, I would not want to try and tell you from Dr. Taylor's perspective.
But you heard his words. I think as parents, we want to know more specifics. We need to hear some specifics. As always, the person who resigns has a problem with things that are getting done, and perhaps he has problems with his bosses. We as parents need to know what the problems are that would motivate a talented person, as you have described him, a very talented educator, to up and resign barely 1 month into the school year. We would like to know what the problems are that currently exist that would force such an action.
And what I would like to be able to do is try and answer that question in terms of what I understand to be some of those issues. Some of those issues, just as you would imagine, running a large school with 1,600 children in it, and even at some of the smaller high schools, middle and elementary. What Dr. Taylor has, in a general sense, outlined to us was the inability to sometimes choose his own personnel, meaning what teachers would actually work in his facility.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Was that discussed before he was hired?
Sir, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let me finish. What he has outlined to us was the ability to not have as much say in personnel who came to his facility. And then the other thing that he would outline, I think it would be fair to say, is even when he did have the opportunity to outline and have input on who would actually be in his building, the processing time that it took to actually get that person physically in the facility. He talked to us as well about the opportunities and how difficult it is sometimes with regard to invoices that have to go through the appropriate financial services area or the finance system at central office. Those were 2 or 3 examples that come to mind. And quite honestly, as we have other principals who are even here in the audience this evening on a day-to-day basis running a school, they would be able to share with you some of those more specific items as well. But I think that gives you a flavor of what he has shared with us. And also, he would share with us as just as a principal new coming into the district, is something that we were very much attuned to. He said to us, look, it just takes forever sometimes to get responsiveness. We have shared that with the individuals who are responsible for responding to principals. So that's been another example of the kinds of things that he shared with us.
But were you involved directly in the hiring process of Dr. Taylor? In the discussions and the interviews?
Are you referring to this Current, or are you talking about a year ago when he came?
When he was hired as principal of North Atlanta.
When he was hired as principal of North Atlanta High School, I was with the superintendent, which the recommendation was made for Dr. Taylor, and we were the last two individuals who spoke with him about his desire to work in Atlanta Public Schools.
And did he express any of these concerns about all the bureaucracy that is involved in getting things done with, for example, invoices or personnel decisions? Were any of those concerns expressed by him or communicated from your side to him as a prospective employee?
When he was applying a year ago for the principalship, no, he did not.
In Earl Davis's office, he indicated to us that it would not necessarily require a board vote to make the personnel changes that he announced. And in his announcement yesterday, there was no indication that it was pending a board vote. How did that get miscommunicated?
Here is the way that unfolded, and for any attorneys in the room, they could even help us out. But here's what happened. The superintendent has the ability to make direct appointments at the executive director level or above. Okay, so the superintendent operated under the understanding that he had the ability to do that, to make that decision. However, technically, what we later learned, which was, I guess, yesterday evening, if my timeline is right, yesterday evening, what we understood very technically is that Dr. Taylor moving from the role of a principal to an executive director's job would be a promotion. Thus, if it is a promotion, the superintendent has the ability to make the appointment, but the Board of Education has to then approve that recommendation.
Was it not known that that was a promotion when the idea was first put out there?
Correct.
It was not.
I'm sorry.
It was not known that that was a promotion.
Sure, we knew it would be. Yes, we knew it was a promotion for Dr. Taylor moving from the position of principal to executive director. Yes, we knew that. And yes, we were under the impression that the superintendent could make that recommendation, could make that direct appointment, I should say, and have that as a direct appointment, and that appointment would be honored and would be adhered to. What we later learned is that he could make the appointment, and we then learned in the late hour last night that it had to be approved by the board. We did not know that going in.
And there was no vote today because the motion wasn't seconded. Has it not been left open that it could be brought back to a vote? Or is there no other appointment or interim appointment or anything else that can be done to retain? Or are we saying we're done with all efforts?
Again, technically, and again, I don't want to play the legal side here, but technically, as I understand by our charter, the superintendent could make that direct appointment, and it's either a 30 or a 60-day period that the individual could be in that role. However, at the end of that time period, the board would then have to vote.
Is that under consideration as an option tonight?
That was not discussed during the meeting that I was in earlier today. That was not discussed.
I made a motion, it wasn't seconded. And therefore there was no vote.
Could Mr. McDaniel explain why? He did not second it or support it.
As chairman of the board, my job is to run the board meeting. I called for the agenda item. A motion was made to pass it. None of my colleagues wanted to second that motion. So from my perspective, I saw that as an indication that they did not have any support for the motion passing. We had an extensive conversation in executive session around this personnel matter. We can't disclose what those issues are, but we had an extensive discussion about the personnel matter. I have been, and made it very clear to a lot of people, I'm a big supporter and fan of Dr. Taylor. I think that he has been a wonderful principal of North Atlanta High School, and I hope that he can continue that role. If not, I hope the administration can find a role it would be appropriate to utilize his talent